Okay, good morning. So, a new Zimun today. We'll do the first two Seifim. Very, very important, relevant halachas because we're talking about a Zimun still, and it's quite a common scenario. If you've got two people sitting, and they may have finished their meal, and all of a sudden a third person rocks up. When can he join? Has he got to eat something? How does it work? So says the Mechaba, Shnaim she'ochlu be'echod. Ke'echod. Two people are sitting down together eating, v'gomru, and then they finish their meal. U'bosh and then a third person arrives. So long as the first two, that if a bit of dessert or something else is brought to them, they will still want to eat from it. Then the third person can eat something because the first two haven't really finished their meal, and therefore it's still considered eating together. And although the Mechaba says Lashon of Chayovim, the Mishnah Berurah says it means it's a mitzvah. He doesn't have to, you're not obligated, but it's nice to give him something so that he can join in and make a Zimun. So long as the first two haven't said Havlon Nevarich. Avlim Omru Havlon Nevarich, but once the first two have said Rabbi Nevarich, and then the third person comes along, Einim Mitzaref in Mohem. When the Tilas Ma'machrenim is Havlon Nevarich Tomi. When they start washing my machronim, that is the tantamount to Havlon Nevarich, which means it's the end of the meal, like we've discussed previously, V'ayin El Siman Kuf Ayin Tes. So just to summarize the Mechaba says, if you've got two people eating together, and then a third person comes along, it's a mitzvah to give that third person something to eat, so that he can be considered eating with them, so that he can make a zimun. But once the first two have said Rabbi Nevarich, or they've ended their meal, then it's too late. So long as if some food, dessert would be brought to them that's still eat it, then it still would work. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Cotton Aleph, Bosh Lishi, and he wants to join and eat with them and then join in Zimun. I.e. the first two have not yet fully finished. They could still be tempted with a bit of apple pie or whatever it may be. Which is another way of Chazal saying desserts. Could go in Paris or Kumein or Pitris. Interesting, at the end of the meal, back in the days of Chazal, they would have fruit or mushrums or pitriate. They're like stuffed pigeons and things like that. That was nowadays we have whatever we have for dessert. But that's how they finish their Suda. And since the first two would eat a little bit of that, they haven't finished their meal, and therefore the third person can be mitzdaref, can join with them. Because it looks like the first two have not yet finished their meal. So long as the third person sort of sits with them, he sits at the table with them and he eats. Then the you've got two people sitting. It could even be that you've got one person having his meal and then two people join him. Etc. So the same applies, we'll see in the next sif, with regard to 10 as well, the same halachas. So he's obligated to give the third person something to eat. So the Mishnah says, sif kotan daled lav dafka, in that way you can make a zimun. But once they've said Rabbi Nevarich, then it's too late. They've sort of decided not to eat anymore. Which we did already. So just to summarize, it's quite a common scenario. You can have two people sitting at a Shabbos table. You've got a bunch of people there, but two adult men, and then a couple walk in, and a man is sort of your third man. So long as the first two have not said Rabbi Nevarich, or they're still sitting there and they could be tempted having more food, they haven't benched yet. So then you give something to eat to this third guy, and you've got your zimun. Okay, so now just to elaborate a little bit more on this, sif base, tisha she'achlu, you've got 9 people that are eating, dogon, which means although it means mezonos, but it means here some bread. So you've got 9 people having a suda of bread, ve'echad achol kazayis yarok, and then the 10th man has some vegetables, a kazayis of vegetables, mitzdarfin haskei Hashem. That allows you to join that 10th man so that you can bench with Elokeinu. ואפילו לא תיבל עמהם אלא בציר, or lo yisha imam ela kais echad sheish b'reviz b'chol mashka. And even if this 10th person only had a little bit of vegetable which he dipped in the juice, or just drank a reviz of some mashka, chutz min hamayim, apart from water, then mitzaref imayim, so you give the guy a glass of wine, you give him a whiskey or something, then he can join in. But who's going to do the zimun? Of course, the person who ate the bread. Va'afilu shiva, and it doesn't have to be 9 and 1, which is the example we gave till now. Va'afilu shiva ochlu dogon, even if you've got 7 people who had washed, ushloisha yorik, and 3 people have had the vegetables, mitzdarfin. Avul shisha loy. It's not just a clear majority. It's a ruba de minka boinam. It's got to be a very clear majority. It's got to be very recognizable. So therefore, so long as 7 had eaten bread and 3 are going to eat something else, then they could join to say Elokeinu. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah, ve'echad achal ta'af al yerek ein mevorchin birchas hamazon. Even though you don't say birchas hamazon on a vegetable, mikol mokum yochel istarf lan is baruch shechal mishloi. It's still legitimate for him to turn around and say baruch shechal mishloi. It's still considered nachila. Kazais yerek time to kivin she'emes shechalnu ve'nachila p'chus mekazais. He's got to have at least a kazais. Not a lot. It's a little matchbox, a small kazais. Oimishum debo'in sheis chav al koponim b'shem bracha. Or the reason is that at least that way he's going to make a bracha achrona of a pachas mekazais and chiv b'shem bracha achachilosei. Of course, before you eat, you've got to make a bracha for even any minimum amount. But a bracha achrona, you can need a kazais. Kamavur lekaman siman reish yud. Mitzdarfin ve'im kva berich bracha achrona. But if they've already made a bracha achrona, shuven yechol lezamin olav to kva nistalik meham. Same as Sif Aleph. Once it's finished, then you can't join together. But tzir hainu shetoval yerek batzir ovein kulam hoyerak kazais. Afil hochim mitzdarf. Kais echad deshtia bichlal achila v'yacholem she'ochalnu chutz min hamayim. But apart from water. But if the 10th person, or even in the case of a zimun of 3, if the 3rd person who's joining just drinks water, that will not be enough. Says the Mishnah Berurah Yud Beis, the mayim lo zayni, because water is not satiating. Ve'ena choshev litztarif. Afilu tzomeh, even if it's thirsty, v'roitz lishtos. Morgan Avram Chelek the pasuk the mitztarif. He says no, you can. The chol sheh b'chal achili. He says any drinking would count. Ve'tiku eze achreinim la'alocha, and some poskim bring this la'alocha. Achem b'sefer b'gdei yeshav magen geberim hiskimu l'mechaber v'chem esad b'sefer chamid Moshe. That water will not be enough. Hamavarich echad the kimen kshu moitzis chaver b'rchas Zimun chomer tfei, and therefore he should be the one doing it. Yerek v'uadin eze mashke v'chanal. So just to summarize, that if you've got 2 people eating and then a 3rd person joins them, so long as the first 2 have not finished and said Rabbi Nevarich or Mamachrenim, a 3rd person can join. Lav dafka 2 and 1, but even if it's 1 person eating and 2 people join, that would also work. And with regards to 10, so too you need a ruba de minka, which means you need at least 7 eating bread and 3 to join in order to do a Shem Elokeinu, and you can give that 3rd person or the extra person any type of food or drink. Chutz mimayim. The Magen Avraham is make with mayim. In footnote number 15, he talks about other drinks, Coke, lemonade, etc. In the beginning, he says basically lemonade is not good enough. He quotes Rabbi Yashiv, "V'ashoisa teim sukkah." Rabbi Yashiv says that's not good enough. Don't just give him a lemon tea. Einam mitzdarf lezimun. It needs to be something a bit more. It's because they're all based. They're just water essentially. But if you give them like a juice, a proper orange juice, something like that, then it'll be different. And just number 16 is an important one. Hashoise mayim rak almanas litzarf lebirchas hamazon. Then kosav be'alocha lekamon she'af ledas haMagen Avraham sheshtir bichlal achila. But if in there einam litzarf lebirchas hamazon, even though the Magen Avraham says even water's enough. But that's only if he really wants to have a drink. But if he's only doing it in order to do the zimun, that's not going to be good enough. So the key is give him a gesund, a bit of dessert, and then you're sorted. Okay, cult of